I grew up in Albuquerque, living with my grandmother. By the age of 11, I experienced molestation by a family member. After reporting the molestation, the information was dismissed. I ran away and began living with my mom, Elizabeth Molina. My mother partied, regularly bringing me out with her to bars and nightclubs. I was 15 in 1992 when my mother turned up in a ditch, murdered. The crime was not thoroughly investigated due to my mother's ties to the drug scene and everything that surrounded it. Her death was initially written off as a drug overdose. Having nowhere else to safely turn, I followed in my mother's footsteps. I was in and out of juvenile detention centers for drugs and other charges, in both the US and Mexico. During my teen years, I experienced domestic violence with a man who assaulted me to the point of permanent facial bone structure injury. While I lived, he eventually went on to murder another woman. I went on to live in various motels along the track of Albuquerque. In 1998, 5 years after my mother's death, I lost my best friend Raymond Baca. Ree was murdered while in the lifestyle and on a date with a man, Robert Bryant, that Ree and I had experienced problems with before. Ree's body eventually turned up in the man's vehicle after he was arrested on a DUI charge. He was convicted of her murder and died in prison. Almost a year after Ree was found, in March 1999, I was kidnapped in Albuquerque and transported to Elephant Butte, New Mexico, where I was collared, chained, and tortured for 3 days by David Parker Ray, known as the Toy Box Killer, and his female accomplice, Cindy Hendy. I found myself in a terrifying place that Ray referred to as his toy box. It was an eerie space, filled with chilling instruments, tools of torture meant to inflict unthinkable pain. Chained and collared like an animal, I was held captive by these monsters. They relished in my pain, in my fear, for 3 harrowing days. Their cruel laughter echoed in my ears as they tormented me, their hands invading my personal space, violating my dignity. Each touch was a searing burn, each violation a punch to my gut. Every nerve was on fire, my skin ablaze with a pain that seemed to have no end. But what was even more terrifying than the physical torment was the psychological terror. The waiting, the dread of what new horror they would unleash on me next. The cold, calculating look in their eyes as they planned my next bout of torture was a chilling reminder of the monster I was trapped with. Each day was a new level of torment. Pain was a constant companion, every breath a reminder of my agonizing reality. My body was used, abused, left feeling foreign to me. Yet, despite the horrendous physical torture, the fear was perhaps even more crippling. The constant dread of what would come next, of how far they would push their sadistic pleasures. My mind teetered on the edge of sanity as I wondered if I would ever see the outside world again. But within me, a fire was kindled. Every slap, every scream, every tear, hardened my resolve. I clung on to my memories, my identity, despite their attempts to strip it all away. Each passing moment, I was plotting, waiting for the right moment to reclaim my freedom. Having lost both my mother and my best friend to murderers, I was determined to escape. When Ray left the home to go to work and Hendy was on the phone, I seized this opportunity to grab the key to release myself from the chain. Hendy realized what was happening and tried to stop me, which led to an altercation with her being hit in the head with an ice pick by me. At this point, I was able to run out of the house, naked with the metal collar still around my neck, and brought national attention to a man who is thought to have murdered over 58 people. I encountered permanent nerve damage as a result of the torture but was never compensated. Ray died in prison shortly after being convicted and sentenced to 224 years. Hendy was also convicted and then released from prison in 2019. Another of Ray's accomplices, Dennis Ray Yancey, was sentenced to 30 consecutive years but was released on probation in 2011. Yancey later received a DUI, resulting in his probation being revoked, and caused him to serve another 8 years. Ray's third accomplice, Jessie Ray, David Parker Ray's daughter, was sentenced to probation but later violated her probation. She served 2.5 years in prison for her crimes against the women, and 5 years of probation. Jessie likely received leniency because she had attempted to warn authorities about her father or because Ray made a deal for her. My life went on. I managed to get clean from drugs, married, and had 4 more children. I even completed both a dental assistant and a medical assistant program, although I was limited in being able to pursue either professionally due to my background. I continued to find other work, including doing portrait photography professionally. Life seemed relatively normal. My life has crossed paths with 2 serial killers, both of which authorities had been warned about. In both instances, the men went on to murder numerous more people, creating intergenerational trauma. I have been fortunate to have another woman, my stepmother, enter my life later as a loving mother figure, but I realize that the pain caused by these murders can never be undone for my family and others.